Welcome to the Starting Over podcast, because wins don't last forever. I'm your host, Dark Logos, aka Edward Shelton, or you can reverse that around and that'd be proper English. What we're going to do, something really special this year, is I'm going to start interviewing people from the community and seeing their take on clicks, and then also have them give you brief insight into how they came into the game and what impact they have on the game. Today I have with me the one, the only Joel Dad. So go ahead and say hi to the nice people online.
Hi, my name's Joel Dad, Joel Acosta in real life. Pleasure to get the invite. Nice to come on and talk.
All right, thanks. Pretty much you've been doing the forum team building competition for more years than I can count, and I know a long time ago, in the deep dark era of clicks, even I competed in that competition on the WizKids forum. So how did that come to be, and what really made you motivated to come up with the idea?
Well, my passion for HeroClix in general has always been team building. I love strategy. I love analysis. The first thing I'll ask people is, when a major con's over, it's like, what won, what was in the top 8, what happened, and just general analysis just makes me giddy inside. So I was just sitting around one day on the old WizKids forums and just thought, hey, we got a lot of newer players that are on there, and we're not sure, what a competitive team looks like, what makes a good team. Usually you just had people posting, random thoughts, and everybody would keep on, like suggesting the same figures and this and that and the other. And I just thought, let's get a group of these guys who say they know what they're doing as far as team building goes, and see which one of us can come up with the best teams given the scenario and all the different build restrictions, and just kind of took off from there, just mostly to try and help the community understand what, not necessarily, world-beating teams, but just a different way of looking at it from other people's perspectives.
Yeah, and just for a lot of people to get a little bit more feedback or understanding and how it works, usually in the forum building competition, you're seeing it goes as low as a 100-point game all the way up to a 1,000-point game. I think I even saw an iteration with a 2,000-point game. Each level has certain restrictions, such as, hey, everybody has to have the same printed team ability. Everyone, must have a range of 6, or someone must have a, no range. So it really pushes each player in the competition to think of something creative, and also what's going to be popping up so that they can build the best team possible for the scenario. And I also remember when I was a judge in Tulsa for a while, I even used some of the forum building competition scenarios as scenarios for my players, just to add something new into the mix. But with that being said, is there a team or a certain player that's done the forum building, team building competitions for a while that just stands out in your mind, like that one team or that one player?
Over the years, we've had it's kind of come and gone, a mix of new guys versus old guys. We got Harpua, one of the assistant rules arbs, I guess you can call him. He's still working around. He was there on the old WizKids forums with me, and we got a couple of returning champs like Derby Lembeck and a couple of the old names. Most of the old guard, unfortunately, either haven't seen it when it's reborn or what have you. We do have one competitor, Mr. the Seven of Diamonds from I believe it's Pennsylvania. He has finished in the finals or won all 4 times we run it on the HC Realms. So he actually doesn't have a regular play group, but he just loves analysis like I do, and just gets in there and comes up with winning teams.
Wow. That's a pretty good streak. And I've seen some of the things that people have posted, and some, like, even though this podcast is more targeting the tactical people and people that are, trying to be analytical and try to make the best possible team, or try to come from the best analysis point possible. But some folks might think, it was nothing but cheese that, that these people play or list down, and it's not. I've seen some real ingenious stuff, that's outside the box with the teams, and it's not just the same old figures. Now you do see, some of your common figures. Back in the day, I couldn't count how many times I saw a con artist listed on a team, or a Black Panther. But as time progresses, you start finding out, like, hey, these people aren't one dimensional. They do have a lot of breadth to their game. So when you design teams and when you really look at team building structures, what comes to your mind? Flexibility, creativity, easy win, quick win. What comes to your mind of what is a good, solid team?
Well, a long time ago, way yesteryear when I started, everybody was all about, we're talking super old school, like flyers can carry flyers and all that garbage, and everybody back then would just play the highest damage figures they could, just literally just throw as much damage as you can out there. And I tried that same approach myself, and oftentimes I would maybe go 50-50 or struggle, and I wouldn't have a decent winning percentage. And what I actually found out in HeroClix team building is the most important factor for team building for me is mobility. You got to be able to get around the board. You got to be able to get to where you need to go when you need to do it. And if you actually look at the majority of the old school Wizard World Champions, and even the new ones, they all have the same common factor. They have some sort of movement trick, whether it's Metron and Thing making it in the second. I mean, that took second 2 years ago, Gen Con, I'm just saying it as an example, or Shazam with Hypersonic. Like, you got to have a way to get around the board. You got to have a way to get around the board consistently, and you got to have a way to have it keep going. Like, the old school lamp teams, like, yeah, it's just phasing with a lockjaw, but that's 14 speeds. They can go anywhere they wanted to, whenever they wanted to. And
yeah.
And Hypersonic is one of the most powerful powers in this game for a reason, because you can get where you need to go, and getting where you need to go in any miniatures game is, to me, it's still the most paramount point.
Yeah. And like for some of the old champion teams, I know for a fact, and I even pointed out that since we've had the introduction of hypersonic speed, there hasn't been really a world's champion team outside of Lamp that hasn't used some form of hypersonic speed. And I think someone says, well, what about the year that there was like he was Avengers and he was a transporter. Gosh, dog. He has like the ebony blade. That's the only thing I can remember. Black Knight or something like that. Like the Black Knight team won, and someone said, well, that's not hypersonic speed. It's like, no, transporter is hypersonic speed light. It's pretty much the same thing.
It's amazing you bring that up, because that was Wizard World Chicago 06, and it was the Vet Ghost Rider experienced Black Knight back in the old school Thunderbolts, a rookie Dr. Midnight experienced Mockingbird, and I think he had one more piece on, rookie Domino. And you asked me how I know that, because I lost to that team in the semifinals of the World Championship, because on a critical fail, no less. I was actually playing my version of Lamp with 3 Lockjaws, 2 experienced Cyclone Jokers, armor piercing, the whole bit, and he threw down a poor teamwork, and I should have been done right then and there, and I actually came all the way back and was one non-critical failure away from winning it, and of course, crit fail. So
and
I have experience with that particular team.
Sorry, that team. The main reason that team struck me as something that was a little bit more obscure, and definitely at that time, because everything was around KC Flash, or I don't know if it was us coming off of KC Flash, or KC Flash is still just, at its end. That was the first thing, is everyone said you couldn't win without being able to deal with KC Flash or imitating KC Flash. The other thing that was interesting was Lamp, when it came in, was the first time someone said, I'm going to take a different approach to damage. And so it was either high mobility by using running shot, hypersonic speed, all these different things, or you were playing Lamp and you were playing this damage over time. I didn't have to do a whole ton of damage to you. I just had to make sure that every turn you did take damage, and I just stopped you from healing. And then I can heal because I just double time it back. So I will say this, like, for me as a player, when I saw Lamp and when I saw that particular team, unfortunately, that you lost to with the Ghost Rider and the Black Knight, they made me say, wow, I need to think differently about team building, and I need to think differently about how am I going to deal with the meta. And that's when I started experimenting with, of all things, Mind Control and Psychic Blast. So that,
it's amazing how the game shifted in the last few years. I mean, it's like, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Like, yes, it's still hypersonic, and yes, it's still a lot of the same elements that it's been over the years. But if you look at the recent, like, top finishes at either Origins or Gen Con, it's like, somebody came up with that. I think it was that Bullseye double Moonstone team to try and take down Metron. Like, that's the kind of outside the box thinking that most people don't think of. It's like, oh, well, Bullseye is great against Nightcrawler. I'll just throw Thunderbolts on him and make him ultimates. Well, you also need to deal with Metron. So the guy's like, oh, I'll just stick in 2 Psychic Blasters and a Yellow Lantern, and voila, I've got a 13 attack whenever I need it. Like, that was brilliant.
Yeah. And then even when I saw, like, if you're not going against Nightcrawler or Heavy Stealth, is having Thunderbolt to Sinister Syndicate, and then have the Moonstones and the Bullseyes all share that high attack value. And I was
that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh, that's ridiculous. We sort of talking about last Gen Con. I had Dan on the show. I've had George on the show as well. When we look at last Gen Con, I will say it's like any Gen Con. Am I looking for a ton of creativity? Not really. And I can't hate on Dan like, oh, you played Metron and Nightcrawler, shake your finger at you. I was like, no, it's what he took 2 synthesis in the meta that was there. I mean, he took 2 elements in the meta and made a synthesis. I was talking with a friend of mine, and we were saying right before Gen Con, we said the road is split 3 ways. It was Metron on one end, it was Bullseye killing people, guaranteed damage from far away, and then there was Nightcrawler. And I said to somebody the winner is going to find a way of dealing with all 3 or have a synthesis of the 2. And that's what he did. He did the synthesis. He's like, well, I got enough points for Nightcrawler, and I can play Metron. Here's my peanut butter and my chocolate. That's what came to my head. And then when I saw the finals, and it was Rosebud versus Dan Morand, I was like, Kid Zoom and Nightcrawler both got the gem, and I was like, yeah, that's no one has any excuses after this point about why they lost.
Yeah, and that's like one of the more bizarre kind of things that happened in between. Right before this Gen Con, the months leading up to it, was the retirement of the Shield Disruptor. Like, single-handedly changed Metron's outlook. Like, everybody's like, oh, they're thinking they're all big and bad. Oh, well, we can deal with Metron. Like, we got the Shield Disruptor, we got the Killbox, we got, we got ways of getting around this guy. And then, they retire the Shield Disruptor, and you're just like, oh crap, we're kind of back to square one with this guy. And going into it, like, I knew Nightcrawler would be a factor, and I knew that Metro would be a factor. And, I'm not going to say that the World Championships team was that obvious, because clearly, a lot of people didn't think of it. But, it's it's kind of like, 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 is where you want to go.
Yeah.
So, it was disturbing. It's like, okay, we're going to take 2 of the top 5 pieces of the game and just put them on a team, and if you could beat that, good luck. And I know that the community got all in an uproar when Nightcrawler was released, and Kid Zoom was released the set before, and it's like, oh well, he's gonna be able to stop Nightcrawler, or this and that and the other. I'm not gonna get into the Nightcrawler versus
Kid Zoom
debate, because my feelings on that are well chronicled. But
yeah, I know. I've seen it.
You just gotta hand it to the guy, and winning with great pieces also takes great play. And when you see Lamp out there, like, what's the number one thing you can't control in this game, and that's dice rolls. Like, that's why Lamp won, is because they eliminated dice from the game. You didn't have to roll. And Metron Nightcrawler right now, like, they're both solid stats. They both can take a halfway decent hit. Like, the fact that Metron has support is just ridiculous. And the synergy between the two is amazing, and I'm not at all surprised that it won, because as long as you play it right and the dice go your way, you should have a decent chance of winning versus just about anything, including Kid Zoom.
Yeah. Wasn't it Rock 810, God bless him, who came up with the acronym STOP, right? The support, telekinesis, outwit, probability control, and perplex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. He brought it up back when he did the magazine, the gaming mag that he posted up on AC Realms. But
Critical Hit.
Yeah, Critical Hit. That's it. And the thing, when he proposed Stop, it's the first time that we actually said logistically there is a benchmark for what a good team is. You need to hit all the elements of Stop, or at least 4 of the 5 elements of Stop. You can't be like, well, I might have 2 or I might have 1 part of Stop. You need to have all of them so that you're able to compete. Because without, and this again, old TK rules with 10 range with TK, and you couldn't get people unadjacent and all this other things. Old Stop made it so that everything that we come through and look at team building now possible. And Metron had most of Stop, and there was nothing really that you could do about it. You couldn't really negate him. And even when I came up to Gen Con this year and I was looking at Metron, and I said to myself, okay, can I do a new form of Lamp? There is no Lockjaw, but WizKids spoiled us that a Lockjaw is coming for Christmas. I mean, for one of the sets, so I'm happy about that. I started to say, like, what can we do is equivalent, and I was like, well, you have Dirk Anger, you have Viper, you have the Hellfire Club Guard, and me trying to figure out what's it from there. And I started to realize, like, Lamp now is almost impossible. You can do it, but the amount of figures that you would have to move makes it really tough, and it makes it really tough on you because you won't have telekinesis. You'll have an outwit, but you probably won't have a perplex when you need it. And if you do have probability control and you can fit it, it's not going to be where you need it to be, and it's not going to be as mobile as you need it. And so that's when I sort of decided, like, oh, I need to drop this idea, at least for a couple of sets. And I haven't seen anything else that let me play a poison team effectively. But definitely Dirk Anger was there to shut down Metron. But I digress.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Going into Gen Con, I was actually planning to go, and then I had a couple family medical things come up to where I couldn't. But I had a couple different ideas for Gen Con, and the first place my mind goes when I start building is, it's not the obvious stuff, it's the weird stuff. And I actually had a couple Metron builds of my own, and you're like, well, how can Metron builds be weird? Well, my one of the builds that I proposed to one of the players who was going, and unfortunately he didn't make the top 16, otherwise he might have played it, was Metron, Dirk Anger, and Dave Carson. Now, it's sneakily kind of powerful because Dirk Anger on the second click gives Metron a +1 attack from unusual WMDs. You shut off opposing Metron's Power Cosmic. You have double Perplex. You have two phasing taxis, one that creates Hindering Terrain for Dirk Anger to sit in eventually. And that was one idea. The second idea was crazy out of the box. It was Metron with Jackal and 2 researchers.
Oh gosh. That is hilarious. Oh gosh.
If nobody knows why that's hilarious, because Jackal gives you stat bonuses against people of the same name. So Metron against an opposing Metron, base before Perplex would have had a 12 attack and 6 damage against opposing Metrons. And yeah.
Yeah. It would be ridiculous. Oh gosh. I've seen a bunch of different stuff with team building, and I'm sort of going to put you on the spot because I don't know if you've seen the. Have you seen the new the Infinity Gauntlet? Have you seen that?
As far as the set or
no the actual Gauntlet thing. Someone spoiled it, I think last night. Had you had a chance to see that?
I actually haven't because I was at work today.
Oh, okay. Well, for you listeners out there, you're going to probably already have known about it, and probably are crying and lamenting and hide your kids, hide your wife, sort of situations after seeing this. I'm just gonna go ahead and read it off, and just I want you to tell me what you think. But I also I'm going to give a little brief analysis here as we sort of end things on a high note. First off, the Infinity Gauntlet is interesting because I think it's like a base 10 points. Each gem is 5 points, and you need at least 1 gem to use the Infinity Gauntlet. You cannot use any other objects whatsoever if you use the Infinity Gauntlet. But if you use all 6 gems and it comes in at a whopping 40 points, you get willpower and the ability not to be outwitted. You don't get Power Cosmic team ability, please, I'll make that clear. You get willpower and the ability not to be outwitted. So you can't get Dirk Angered. Okay, so just going through, setup Infinity Gauntlet begins the game on the green starting line. It is a dial, but it does not have a KO click, sort of like an event dial. The dial may rotate past the starting line. You may not add special objects to your force if the Infinity Gauntlet is part of it. Turn the dial at the end of your turn. If assigned character was given a non-free action this turn, choose 1. Number 1, deal assigned character 1 unavoidable damage. Number 2, number 2, roll a d6 that can't be re-rolled and turn the Infinity Gauntlet dial to the right that many times. Or 3, if the Infinity Gauntlet dial has a special power visible, you may choose to do nothing. Using effects, when a gem, a standard power, or a special power is revealed on the dial, assigned characters can use the effects associated with that if they can't already. You may only use the gem's effects if that gem is attached. Now, the powers on the dial is pretty much 1 standard power per part of the dial. Those standard powers are Telekinesis, Leap Climb, Mastermind, Mind Control, Charge, Super Senses, Stealth, Blaze Claw's Fangs, Quake, Poison, Combat Reflexes, Psychic Blast, Flurry, Energy Shield Deflection, Close Combat Expert, Exploit Weakness, Range Combat Expert, Toughness, Invulnerability, Impervious. You will also note that you do not see Outwit, Prob, and Perplex. And there's a good reason for that, because there is also the Infinity Gauntlet gems, and each part of the dial has 3 gems at random, so it appears. First is the Soul Gem. That character can use Steal Energy, and when a character KOs an opposing character, heal that character of 2 damage. Power Gem. If the character's printed range value is 4 or less, the character can use Close Combat Expert. If that character's range value is 5 or more, that character can use Range Combat Expert. Time Gem. Character can use Incapacitate and Super Senses. Space Gem. Character can use Phasing / Teleport, and the carry ability modify character speed values by +2. Reality Gem. Character can use Probability Control, but only during character's turn. Mind Gem. Character can use Mind Control and Telekinesis. And it's not done. Infinity Gauntlet rules. Your trait for having the gauntlet. The gauntlet complete. If all 6 gems are attached, the character's powers and combat abilities cannot be countered, and the character can use willpower. Down the dial of the actual Infinity Gauntlet, near the end of the dial, you have numbers marked. And when you see the number 1, you get Beyond Mortal Limits. At the beginning of your turn, choose an attached gem that you did not choose last turn. That character can use the effects of that gem as long as this power is showing. At that point, you only have 2 gems that show plus this power. And the powers I'm going to say from this point on. So you don't have 3 gems plus this, you have 2 gems. Next is Apostasis Approaching. Modify character's combat values by +1. At the beginning of your turn, choose a standard power character. A standard power character can't already use. Characters can use that power until your next turn. Ultimate Godhood. Number 3, characters combat values by +2. Modify character combat values by +2. And characters can use the effects of every attached gem. At the beginning of your turn, choose a standard power. Characters can't use the character can't use all Character can use that power until your next turn. It is a lot for 40 points if you use all gems. I was talking to a friend of mine who said if your figure already has Power Cosmic and you're going to give them the gauntlet, you don't need all gems because you don't need to have the willpower and you don't need to have the power. You don't need to have the ability to not be countered. But you would get those last 3 rules that would come up on the gauntlet. You would get any power that shows up on the gauntlet and any other gems that you have when it rolls to that part of the dial and you have those gems, you would be able to use those gems. So with all that taken in, what do you think? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what does your instinct tell you, sir?
My first thought is, thank God that Icon Superman is retired.
That's the first thing that went through my mind as well.
That's a lot to try to take in. That's the thing about this game is oftentimes it's the non-plastic figures that kind of dictate the flow of the game, and it seems like that's how they're trying to do it with objects between the Gamma Bomb and now this gargantuan monstrosity. Just at first blush, I mean, I think it'll be worth it. I kind of liken it to, I know virtually nobody has probably ever played it, but the Intrinsic Field Experiment 15, like I actually played that in a couple games for fun. It's the Watchmen event tile, and it's got a little bit of a similar concept, and to me this is like playing tarot, only you're paying extra points for tarot. So I don't know. At first blush, if you had to ask me whether or not I thought this would be great, I would say probably not, because most of the figures you would assign this to nowadays, like let's say that you took either the Rookie Common Superman from the main Superman set, or you took the Fantastic Forces Superman, and attached the full gauntlet to him, like you're looking at 190 points of basically godhood. The problem is he doesn't have the old Supernova Thanos stats. He doesn't have the Supernova Thanos long dial. And most of the pieces you would assign something like this to are not long enough dialed in a competitive format that I don't think you'd really be able to get your full money's worth. I mean, yes, Nightcrawler would be ridiculous with this, but I don't know. 126 seen that before within contact with Oracle. I'm not saying this thing isn't a big deal or there isn't a broken combination involved with it, but some of these powers are going to be absolutely useless to you on most turns, especially if it's a large figure. Like, what is a large figure going to do with, leadership? Like, what's a large figure going to do with support if he's the only one on the board? Like, it doesn't really. It just depends on the team, and at first blush, I'm not totally really taken aback by it. I mean, obviously, if you land on the number 3, then look out. But
yeah,
I don't know.
The thing that when I've had time to talk to a couple of people about the dials, and the thing that comes to my mind is, first off, you start off with the power gem, and then I'm going to click at it just to make sure. And looking at this picture here, you start off with Space Gem, then it's followed by the Time Gem, and then that's followed by the Power Gem. And so you have +2 to your movement, you have Super Senses Incapacitate, and then you have Range Combat Expert if you have range, and Close Combat Expert if you don't. And when I looked at that, I was like, pretty much you've turned my guy into Winter Soldier. I just park him here, and he's going to shoot from his, exceedingly crazy range, and keep going at it. Another. Sorry.
His name is Bullseye.
And that came to my mind too. Is you give Bullseye that ability, and he just says, okay, now I have Range Combat Expert, the one thing that everyone knew was broke if I got it. And so now I can actually hit for 5, and I can actually seriously mess with a lot of figures. Where I think it changes the meta, in my opinion, and I made a list and I put it inside the rumors thread, and I'm just going to do the better rundown of the figures of it. Super rare Black Bolts and LE Black Bolt. Just for the fact is, if you just sit and chill and wait, for the LE Black Bolt, you can get aggressive, but if you wait for the super rare Black Bolt to let them come to you, by the time they come to you or you stall it out, you can be on those +1 stats and name your power and just name Running Shot and just go Pulse Wave crazy. Hulklops, Running Shot, Pulse Wave, and other silliness on click 2. Claw, just for the pure threat of, if he has the full gauntlet, all he has to say is, oh, guess what? I have 2 tokens, Masters of Evil team ability, and I'm going to just keep Running Shot, pulse waving, and then when I get really tired, I'm going to run back to the medic. Magneto, because it gets rid of all his complaints. He can push, he can't be outwitted, he has access to anything else he needs, and you can still have somebody to mastermind damage to with the Hellfire Guard. I mean, stealth is still a minor problem, but he can get past almost anything that is a weakness for him. Novar, he's already strong. You just give him more tools for him to do what he needs to do, and he can take on. You still have room for proper support, and he can take on Nightcrawler, and he can take on a whole lot of other bigger pieces in the meta without that many problems. He can take on Superman and kill a Superman or cripple a Superman with no problem. Silver Banshee, because people are not going to look at her twice. She has Mystics, plus you're giving her technically Power Cosmic. She has high damage potential plus Pulse Wave, and if she doesn't have Pulse Wave, she has Psychic Blast. She gets hit too much, she just fades back to the medic. Eradicator, because people are going to always look to him, and they're going to look for another way to manipulate him. 172-point Magog, because he can just keep killing. Now, imagine this. You have Magog, he goes and he has 2 tokens on him. You're about to put the second token on him due to the attack. You do the attack, you kill something, and then you go attack again and kill or cripple the second target. You have all that aggression that you have in 2 turns back to back, and you don't have to worry about pushing damage anymore. And he's no longer a chump. White Lantern Flash, of course. But the one that really did surprise me as viable was the Brave and the Bold, not Brave and the Bold, Brightest Day, Martian Manhunter. For his dial is good enough deep, and you just add pretty much power cosmic to him. I hate to say it like that, and he can go the distance. In my opinion, he starts being able to put pressure back on people. But that's sort of my short list. And I think I don't know if I mentioned Eradicator, but dumping a Superman just to make Eradicator more of a demigod, I don't think people would have problems with doing that either.
Well, I can just to add a few off the top of my head, I can honestly see Fantastic Forces Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
That guy is a vanilla dial, but if you add half those powers, and he'll be almost as scary as his big, big boy incarnation. And it's going to be interesting to see what people do, whether they take the economy approach or they just throw the whole thing on there.
Yeah, and see, from my perspective, is you can play it, and you can play it well, and you don't have to worry too much of getting off that first part of your dial. And even when you do, you can just say, I have Ranged Combat Expert, my base value damage is 3 or 4. Now I've done ridiculous amounts of damage. Spin the dial. That's all I really needed, is that beginning turn 15-point boost so that I can get a Ranged Combat Expert shot off. That's all that I really needed. I can see that. Or someone saying, oh, look, that first click gives me TK. Let me spend 15 points, put this on X or Y cheapo figure that does outwit and nothing more, or a researcher or something like that, and then, oh, okay, I only really need TK first turn. I'm going to TK out XY figure, I'm going to do my magic, spin the dial, and then I get something else that I'm most likely not going to use, and that's okay, because all I'm really doing is paying 15 points to put the gauntlet on this little cheapo figure so I can have TK.
Yeah, like people used to the number one complaint with Professor X teams is that he can't hit anything. Okay, well now you can give him prob. Like,
yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. I had a sick team going with a friend of mine, and we're still working on polishing it up. But it involves it involves Professor X in the gauntlet, and just seeing what happens with a Professor X with a full gauntlet. But that's still down the ways, and we're still thinking about stuff. The problem that I see realistically is once you start getting to those first few clicks of, hey, look, I can name a power, that's when the dial becomes ridiculous. If you let your opponent get that far down, or your game drags that long, you're going to be in a bad position, because they're just going to name whatever they need. Oh, I need hypersonic speed. I need outwit. I need prob. I need perplex. I need this. I need that. They're just going to name it and get it, and you're not going to be able to come back easily from that. And then that's where my big concern is. And then my other concern is for players that come in after this event. This is all they're going to see, and it's not going to be a positive experience for them.
No, kind of like the old, I have 4 protectors on my team, or there's always something that's like that's legal, whether it's a Gamma Bomb, or whether it's the Infinity Gauntlet, or it's in contact with Oracle. There's usually something that's game changing that isn't necessarily on a figure.
Well, speaking of Gamma Bomb, and sorry that we just try to wrap this up, but speaking of Gamma Bomb, what do you think of Gamma Bomb? And definitely seeing what the Gauntlet does. Is the Gamma Bomb still relevant, or do you think like maybe everyone's just going to be just skewing to the Infinity Gauntlet?
Well, the thing about the Gamma Bomb is if you look at it, it's not the most overtly awesome thing you've ever seen in your whole life, because there's the possibility that it'll do nothing. people do a lot. But if you stick your gamma bomb right where you think your opponent's going to camp and try and wait for his Infinity Gauntlet or, something of that nature, like eventually, that gamma bomb will go off. So the one thing that we know about the upcoming year is that clearly this little Infinity Gauntlet thing is going to have to change, or is going to change the way people build teams, and the gamma bomb is going to change the way people position, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm not sure, off the top of my head what it's going to look like, and I don't have any crazy bold predictions, but the gamma bomb is going to get played. People have to get used to it. I don't think that the Infinity Gauntlet's going to get played as much as people think it's going to be, but we'll see. I didn't actually see the rules. The gamma bomb is or is not considered an object?
It is an object. It has a dial, but it is an object. It is not an event dial because New WizKids have not reintroduced that mechanic back. Nika has not introduced that mechanic back.
If you're walking into a Golden Age tournament and somebody thinks they're cool playing the Infinity Gauntlet every week, just bring Batman and Catwoman then.
See, and this is the question: would Batman and Catwoman negate Infinity Gauntlet? And I don't know, because this sucker is really fresh. Like, time of recording, not even 24 hours old fresh. So, the heart's still beeping on this, or beating. So, anyway, I really appreciate you being on the show. I know we could probably just keep talking and talking forever, and I'm definitely going to have you back. Is there anything for closers that you want to just say to anybody? Say to everybody listening?
Just keep your head above water. Competitive HeroClix isn't necessarily something that you need to bash your head up against the wall. All you need to do is find a concept that you like and go with it. Just build around it. Like, you don't have to do what everybody else is doing, but just keep in mind what's out there.
All right. Well, again, I'd like to thank my guest, Joe Dad, for being on the show today, and I really hope you appreciate the insight and depth that we just brought in for your listening pleasure. And this is the Starting Over podcast, and remember, the game will always end, and you got to start over sometime. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.